that's me recording now. Right, okay, so very quickly then, review of previous learning. What I'm going to do is put one or two keywords in on the board. I'm just checking to see.
Stephen, why are you filming?
For academic purposes and my YouTube channel. Right, okay, so drop the link. Right, okay, so if you remember yesterday we were talking about voluntary manslaughter. The key thing I did mention is you have to remember the definition for murder. Now, there were two excuses you could use if, as the defendant, you killed the victim. Now, quick reminders of those two excuses. What would one of them be? Good. What would the other one be? Diminished responsibility. Okay. Right, so in terms of loss of control, what was the old defence? Provocation, good. And in terms of a source of law, what source of law defined provocation? There are four main sources of law. You've got Act of Parliament, you've got common law, you've got EU law, you've got customs. So for provocation, what is the name? Can you go that way, please? Thank you. Go that way, please. Thank you. Right. So what source of law defines provocation, did we say? If it's not an Act of Parliament, what can it be? Common law. Now, common law was enshrined in an Act of Parliament for provocation. Anybody remember the name of the Act of Parliament? It's no longer applicable. I did mention the name of an Act of Parliament. 1957. Thank you. Repeat again, please, Amber.
Section 3 of the Homicide Act.
Absolutely. Section 3 of the Homicide Act, 1957. That defines the old defence of provocation. What's the relevance of Section 3 now? What R word, the letter R, defines what's happened to Section 3 of the Homicide Act, 1957. It's been repealed, absolutely. It's been repealed. Okay, so Section 3 is gone. We now have, what's the replacement, Lewis?
Coroner's Justice Act.
Absolutely.
2009.
Yes. Any particular section we need to think about? Absolutely. Section 54 of the Coroner's Justice Act 2009 is the new replacement for provocation. Right, so if we move on. Important question, how do you prove loss of control? Because I did say if you're going to rely successfully on Section 54, there are three key things that you have to show. So I'm going to list 3 points down. Natalie, what will be the first one?
They must have lost their self-control.
Very good indeed. So D must have lost. So D. The other group, because normally, apart from understanding the 3 points, you've got to be able to translate the 3 points into what you would see in an exam question. So, how would the defendant be behaving if they have lost their self-control? How would D be behaving? Because when you read a scenario question, you've got to pick out the behaviour of the defendant to work out whether they've actually lost their self-control. So what's evident about a defendant that shows that they've lost their self-control? Beth, what do you think? How would you know that Amber has lost her self-control? How would she be behaving is what I'm thinking about.
Should be like quite angry.
Absolutely, angry, that's a good word, yeah. Zach?
Like erratic behaviour.
Absolutely, and once you see that description in a past exam question and there's been a murder, especially by the person who has lost their control, then you start to think about the availability of a partial or special defence. So, loss of control. Did the defendant lose their self-control? Yes, because they were angry, they were shouting, they were running towards the victim. All their behaviour indicated that they had ticked the first box. So if that is present, then at least we've got 1 point sorted. 1 point is not enough. What's the next point we spoke about? Christoph, what's the next point we spoke about?
Qualifying trigger.
Qualifying trigger, very good. So, right, okay, so we know the loss of control resulted from a qualifying trigger. I used 2 letters. Toby, remind me, what 2 letters did I use to indicate possible triggers? 2 letters? 2 letters? Can't remember. Jasmine, do you remember the 2 letters I used to help us remember what might fall under qualifying? Yeah, that's my dance. It's my little dance for the video. Anyway, do you remember? No, Holly, do you remember? No. Lewis, do you remember?
FA.
FA, yes. Yes, do you remember that? I used FA, fear and anger. Did somebody say that? Yes. Anyway, fear and anger. So the defendant, what must the defendant fear? Maddie, what must the defendant fear? Violence against? Them? Or, yeah, remember that bit as well. So when you're reading a question, which we'll be doing very soon, you've got to remember that the violence can be directed towards the defendant themselves, but also somebody possibly related to the defendant. Anger, how might the anger be derived? How is the anger created? Not Lewis, somebody else. How is the anger created? Ellie, what do you think? How is the anger created? There are 2 ways. 2 ways, one or the other or both, is what we said. Remember? Lauren, what do you think? How is the anger created? Jack?
Provocation.
Provocation is a good guess, but we said there were 2 ways in which the anger might be created. Amber? Things
Things said or things done.
Yes, things said or things done, or both. Yeah, somebody calls you a name, that could cause you to get angry. Somebody does something to you, that could cause you to become angry. So it's things said or done. Okay, so fear of violence against the defendant or somebody related to the defendant, and then anger is the other qualifying trigger. What's the third and final test or statement that we identify? Jack, what have you got for us?
The reaction matches that and we're in the same state.
Perfect. Perfect. Reaction of B. Good. Right, very good. So the reaction of the defendant matches that of a reasonable person. Beth, what test would that be? We did identify 2 tests, subjective and objective. So which one is applicable here? The opposite. Objective test, absolutely, and we did say that's quite a high standard because the reasonable person wouldn't behave normally like the defendant behaved. Right, move on very quickly then and then we can start today's topic. Excluded matters. Christoph, give me one. Excluded matters. So in other words, these matters don't fall under qualifying triggers. Because we looked at fear and anger. So what's one of them?
Revenge.
Very good. Thank you, Christoph. That's very good indeed. Lewis.
Sexual infidelity.
Sexual infidelity, very good. Case for sexual infidelity that allows that bit of leeway. So even though, Ellie, yes. Thank you very much. So we have the case of Clinton. 2012, absolutely. Okay. Revenge, what case did we look at to do with the cutting the shotgun, drug dealer, Zach?
Crown and bravery.
Absolutely. What about the other one? Two defendants. The boyfriend of Gregory taunted both Ibrahim and Gregory. What were the facts of that case? Anybody remember the facts of the case? What happened? Why could they not rely on provocation? Lewis, yeah?
Because they took revenge 5 days ago.
Absolutely. Right, okay, so that's a quick run through what we did yesterday on loss of control. I'm going to now turn off the video.